Hello folks, Dustin here again, and it's time once again for another episode of The Lore of the Ring. This is episode number 4. Once again, I appreciate so much the support that I've gotten through the first 3 episodes. It means a lot that one person would tune in to listen, let alone the number that I've seen in my stats, and so I really appreciate that. All the positive feedback means a lot as well. Constructive criticism is also welcome, so if you have some advice for me, hit me with it. Anyway, back to the show. First episode, we covered WrestleMania 22. Second episode, we did Bash at the Beach 1996. Third show, we did ECW One Night Stand 2005. So we've covered, the 3 most prominent wrestling promotions, at least in North America, of my lifetime at least. So where do we go episode 4? Well, I went to Twitter, posted a poll, and WWF Royal Rumble 1999 was the winner. So that's what we're going to cover on this episode. We'll start out by just saying that at the time, WWF was on a hot streak. It's no secret that not that long ago before this show, WCW Nitro had dominated the Monday Night Wars. They had won 83 straight weeks in the ratings. Not here. Not now. At this time, WWF Monday Night Raw was on a 12-week win streak over Nitro, and the business was booming itself. This year's Royal Rumble would have 8.24 million buys of the pay-per-view, and for comparison, 1998, just 1 year prior, did only 3.62 million buys. The main storyline that we've got going on right now is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Mr. McMahon. Stone Cold was the hottest commodity possibly ever in the business, and the feud with Mr. McMahon was certainly part of the reason for that. Their feud started around WrestleMania 14, and by this time, it was in full swing. The corporation was formed in November of 1998, and that was Mr. McMahon's kind of heel faction. And it was set up by McMahon to seize control over the WWF and eliminate Austin as a threat. It consisted of Mr. McMahon, Shane McMahon, The Rock, Big Boss Man as the enforcer. Then you had Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe, the corporate stooges. You also had Test and Ken Shamrock. Now, Kane and Sergeant Slaughter, they were also affiliates, but that's not really important for this show, the Royal Rumble 99. They didn't really, Sergeant Slaughter wasn't shown at all. He wasn't active at this time at all. But Kane, we'll get into it in the match, what happened with Kane, but he didn't really play into the rest of the corporate storyline for this show. Something else that was going on at the time, Mick Foley, he was your champion. He was your WWF champion. He won the belt on the January 4th episode of Monday Night Raw. And Shawn Michaels was the commissioner. Shawn was not able to wrestle at this time. He was needing some back surgery. And so, turned him face, and he's the commissioner. And he's kind of overseeing things. He's in charge of making sure everything's on the up and up. And I say that because at this time, the corporation was trying to rig the Royal Rumble entrant order. And Shawn said, no. Austin drew number 1, or Mr. McMahon drew number 1 for him, and then tried to rig it so that he would be number 30. But Shawn said, no, Austin will be number 1, sure, but Mr. McMahon, you're going to be number 2. And for that 30th entrance spot on the January 11th Raw, they had a 10-person corporate rumble, and it was between the corporation and Degeneration X members. And the winner of this Rumble was going to get to be number 30 in the Royal Rumble. Now, Chyna was a surprise entrant in this match, and she actually ended up winning by eliminating Vince McMahon. And so she would be the first ever woman in the Royal Rumble match. Awesome footnote in history there. Also at this time, you had Vince McMahon had put a $100,000 bounty on Stone Cold Steve Austin's head in the Rumble. Anyone who eliminated him from the match would be $100,000 richer. He said he was going to take the money from Shane McMahon's trust fund and give it to anyone who keeps Austin from winning the Rumble, because he did not want him to have another title shot. Now, another side note, there was also a storyline going on at the time on WWF television where Terry had a miscarriage, and she wanted D'Lo Brown to avenge her against Mark Henry. Also, Mark Henry had hooked up with a woman that we come to find out was a transgender. And that's Vince Russo for you. Luckily, these storylines didn't really play into the pay-per-view. They're only very briefly mentioned during the Rumble match itself. But yeah, that happened. That's really something that was aired on USA Network during Monday Night Raw. Anyway, to the show. It's January 24th, 1999. There was a dark match before cameras go live. It's Christian beating Jeff Hardy in 11 minutes. That's two names that when you look back, it's like, that's crazy, man. 1999, these guys were doing it. And now they're on AEW Dynamite and AEW Rampage Weekly. I mean, that's just cool stuff. Shout out to those guys. And unlike some other shows that we've done, on this show, we've got Sunday Night Heat. So it's technically our pre-show. We're going to cover it. Heat opens up with a nice recap showing what has led up to this show. We got a Vince versus Austin montage here. And how nostalgic is this? I miss Sunday Night Heat on USA and just on Sunday nights in general. I would gladly sacrifice Raw's third hour for a 1 hour Sunday show. I just think that seems like such a no-brainer thing to do. Give us an hour on a different day. Monday nights, 3 hours, it's just too long. The arena is packed here. The crowd is fired up. Also, I miss Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly's our commentator for Sunday Night Heat, and I think he's super underrated, and I love him on New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think Kevin Kelly is a fantastic play-by-play guy. I would much rather have him on Monday Night Raw than Kevin Patrick. Then we get a look at Austin. He's arriving here into the parking lot, and he's being told that he can't park in VIP without a limo. It's pretty good stuff here, back and forth with him and the security guard. Austin says he can find a limo, and he peels out. You can tell that they had rehearsed this earlier in the day because there's black marks in the exact same shape and location on the parking lot, but that's okay. You can forgive that. It was still cool. And then Vince comes out to the ring. He's got Shane with him. He's got Gerald Briscoe. He's got Pat Patterson. And he cuts a promo talking about his street fighting record. It's pretty funny stuff. He gives Austin 30 minutes to show up in the arena or he's disqualified from the Rumble match. He also says he's given Mankind a tune-up match on Heat, and it's going to be against a mystery opponent before his title defense later in the night against The Rock. Shane then joins Kevin Kelly on commentary, and we see a limo pull up out back, and a huge masked man gets out, and we're told that that's Mankind's mystery opponent. So then we get our first match of the night on television, and it's a fun one. It's the Job Squad. It's Scorpio and Bob Holly, and they're facing off against Too Much. That's Too Sexy Brian Christopher and Scott Too Hot Taylor. We would later, of course, know them as Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty Too Hottie. And it's cool to see them, this early incarnation of their tag team here. And another cool little note is Teddy Long is our ref here. Yep, we see Teddy Long as a referee on this pay-per-view and on this episode of Sunday Night Heat. Scorpio was so fun to watch, man. He was so athletic. The finish was kind of awkward, though, because Bob Holly gets the tag and he's working and he hits a Falcon Arrow, but then he had to kind of wait for Scorpio to jump over him and do a shoulder tackle to Taylor before he could pin Christopher for the win. It was, like I said, just a fun opener to get the crowd into it. 3 minutes, 52 seconds, nothing special. After the match, the Ministry of Darkness' acolytes and Midian run down and they beat the hell out of both teams. And then the Undertaker is out and he cuts a very cryptic and ominous promo saying that tonight he will pick his next target and it's up to them to accept him. And so the Ministry of Darkness is also a storyline in WWF at this time, and maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not. It's probably my favorite incarnation of The Undertaker. Supernatural Undertaker, that was cool as a kid, but the older I got, man, Cult Leader Undertaker, that's much cooler. That's much more believable, and, it's a badass faction. So then we got a camera cut to backstage area, and Shane McMahon is interviewing him from the commentary table, which I think is kind of weird, but they're talking back and forth. And at the end of it, Mankind screams, or he says that The Rock will be the one screaming, "I quit, I quit, I quit." Remember that. We get a little recap video here also of the brewing issue between Luna and Sable. Sable comes out to be interviewed by Michael Cole in the ring, and she's interrupted by Luna, and it's painfully awkward. Sable turned and saw Luna before Luna attacked her, and she still didn't fight back. It's like it happened in slow motion. F- segment. I mean, that was awful. Now we got Vince back out here, and he's talking about how Austin is apparently not coming back. And then flash to the parking lot. We see a limo on monster truck tires run over some cars in the parking lot and pull up to the arena. It's Austin. He walks to the ring, and something that was odd was there was no music. Like, he just walked from the backstage area through the curtain down the ramp, and we didn't hear the glass shatter. We didn't hear his entrance theme. That was kind of odd, but something that would probably never happen today. But it is what it is. Vince, kind of taunts him a little bit, and he ends up smacking him in the face and runs away. And Austin just beats up Briscoe and Patterson. That's just classic stuff there. The crowd ate it up. I'm into it. And, the Austin versus McMahon rivalry is probably the hottest angle in wrestling history, if we're being honest. So this is just good stuff to go back and watch. Next, we've got Mankind versus his mystery opponent. The mystery opponent is wearing an all black getup, and he's got a black ski mask on, so we're not supposed to be able to know who it is, but it's very clear who it is, though, right? It's Mabel. Mabel had been gone a while, sure, but it's obvious. His last two matches for the WWF were the 1996 Royal Rumble, and then he wouldn't be on TV again until the July 6, 1998 Raw, where he lost to Ken Shamrock. So when you consider that, though, it had only been like 6 months since Mabel was on WWF television, and given the size of him, I mean, you have to know that that's who's under that ski mask. But that's okay. Mankind's out next, and honestly, watching it back, he did not get the pop that I expected or what you would hope for, considering he's the WWF champ at the time. Mankind was definitely over, but the crowd here for his match, his tune-up match on Heat, was just kind of mild. And the match also sucked. Mabel was just so limited. Yes, he was huge, he was intimidating, and he was decently agile for a man of his size, but he was just so limited in what he could do, his moveset and everything. The finish came when Mankind pulled the ski mask up and applied the mandible claw, fully equipped with Mr. Sacco, only to be attacked by The Rock, who gave him a rock bottom. I guess Mankind wins via DQ, 5 minutes and 4 seconds on that match, but just not good stuff. But it's okay. It's Sunday Night Heat. You just want something out there before the pay-per-view to get the crowd into it. And as the show goes off, as Sunday Night Heat goes off, we see Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. They're oiling up Mr. McMahon in the backstage area. He's got his shirt off, and they're rubbing him with oil. And Vince has a hilarious line. Vince says, "It's not baby oil. It's man oil." I mean, that's just great stuff there. If you don't laugh at that, then you need to check for your pulse. And now we've got the actual show. Royal Rumble 1999. We're in Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim, California. 14,816 fans on hand. And the crowd is... They're red hot. They're white hot, if you will. Side note, it's hilarious seeing 10-10-220 be a sponsor here. Kids today have no idea what 10-10-220 is, and that's the oldest thing that I think I've ever said in my life. But it's just funny to look back, like having to dial a code to get discounted rates on long-distance dialing. Like, that's a wild concept in retrospect. But here we are. We've got Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler. They're going to be on commentary tonight. JR was out at the time. He wasn't doing commentary because he was dealing with his Bell's palsy, but he was in the building. He was producing commentary all night backstage. So shout out to JR. He was able to contribute. And our first match, right out the gate, we've got the hardcore champion Road Dogg, and he's facing off against the Big Boss Man, who is one half of the tag team champs with Ken Shamrock. But this is not a hardcore match. It's not for either belt. It's just a one-on-one match. The corporation shut down the notion that it was a hardcore match, and it's just a straight-up challenge. Road Dogg is so over here. And I can't act like I didn't recite his promo countless times as a kid. Still do. It's fun. Pretty solid opener. Boss Man had some good heat. Road Dogg was super over. The action was fine, and there was plenty of fun spots, including Road Dogg was locked in a bear hug at the hands of the Big Boss Man. And to get the crowd into behind him so he could gain some momentum, he starts raising the roof. I thought that was funny. And then he ended up breaking the hold by biting Boss Man on the nose. Good stuff there. Boss Man was in control for most of the match. The end saw Road Dogg gain momentum, but Boss Man caught him with a Boss Man slam out of nowhere for the 1-2-3. 11 minutes, 52 seconds, and Dave Meltzer gave it 2 stars. I mean, 2 stars might be low. I don't think it was a wrestling clinic by any means, but it was fun. It was, both guys could work, and the crowd was super into it. Next match we've got is Ken Shamrock versus Billy Gunn. So the New Age Outlaws are involved in our first 2 matches. I mean, that makes sense. They were crazy over. Get them both out there. Get them in front of the crowd to heat the crowd up. And the storyline here, this match was because Billy Gunn had come out a couple weeks earlier on Raw and mooned Shamrock's kayfabe sister Ryan in the ring, and Shamrock, being a protective older brother, didn't like it. Now, the funny thing about this is, if you hear stories about Ken and the lady who played Ryan Shamrock, the young lady, they were more like the siblings that get stuck in the dryer, if you know what I mean. They weren't really related, and the rumor is that while they traveled together, they grew quite fond of each other. And I'll just leave it at that. Fun fact about the lady who played Ryan Shamrock, she wasn't a worker at all. She wasn't in the business at all. She wasn't an actress at all. She was just a girl. Vince Russo needed a girl, told Bruce Pritchard find a girl. He found a girl, and she was just supposed to be a one-off. But then it was like, oh, that worked. We need her back. Hey, we need her back. And so they kept having her back. And so that's kind of funny there. Anyway, Billy Gunn did all that to goad Shamrock into giving him an Intercontinental title match at the Rumble. So here we are. Here's the match. Billy Gunn's out first, and I always hated it when he had singles matches and the music, they used the same instrumental music that the New Age Outlaws used as a team and that Road Dogg used as a solo act. But it didn't have Road Dogg's, oh, you didn't know? And so it's kind of weird. It's like, I think Billy should have had his own individual music by this time. Billy is super over, and, all of DX was. He's also super aggressive to start this match. And this one's just a physical brawl. It's worth noting that Shamrock actually had elbow surgery like 3 weeks prior to this show. So it just goes to show what a machine Ken Shamrock was. Still is. Commentary mentions throughout how Shamrock had injured Gunn's ankle the previous week on Raw. And referee Tim White, the late great WWE Hall of Famer Tim White, he's the referee here. He ends up getting clotheslined. And while he's down, Val Venus does a run in and hits a DDT on Shamrock. And Venus had also flirted with Ryan Shamrock a couple weeks ago on Raw, or I guess the previous week on Raw. And, their storyline would really pick up in the weeks following this. But anyway, by the time that Gunn was able to get over to Shamrock and pin him, Tim White came to. He'd recovered enough to do the count. Shamrock kicked out at 2. So the finish of this match comes when Gunn jumps off the top rope and goes down immediately, clutching his ankle. Shamrock locks in the ankle lock for the submission to retain the title. So far, Corporation 2, DX 0. This match went 14 minutes, 23 seconds, maybe a tad too long. Wasn't bad, but just didn't need to go that long. Meltzer only gave it 1.25 stars. Again, that might be a little low because I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it just a match. Just a match. So we go backstage, and we've got Vince. He's backstage with Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, and Shane McMahon. Shane's giving him a pep talk. Something that stood out to me was that now Vince has the sweatshirt on. That's weird because if you remember how he ended, he was shirtless getting oiled up, and now he just put a sweatshirt over top of his oil. So, okay. Next match, we got another title match. It's Gangrel, and who to this day has one of the best entrance themes ever made. Shout out to Jim Johnston. But he's going up against the European champion X-Pac. So far, 3 matches, 3 members of DX. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. King has a great line on commentary in this one. They mention how both of these guys are in the Rumble match, and King mentions that, the bounty on Austin, and he mentions how Gangrel could have some serious dental work done with that $100,000. That's a fantastic line there because, Gangrel, of course, had the vampire fangs. X-Pac hits his patented Bronco Buster in this one, and it just reminds me every time I see that move that X-Pac, Sean Waltman, has torn his anus multiple times performing that move. No thanks. I don't think I would, have that in my repertoire. I would take that one out. I would retire that one. We got a horrible botch in this one too, and I'm not sure who the botch is on, if it's on the workers or if it's on Teddy Long, but X-Pac hits a flying crossbody, and it looks like Gangrel's supposed to roll through for a pin attempt, but he struggled to get through. And so while they were, there was shoulders on the mat, Teddy Long, he counted a 3. But it wasn't supposed to be 3. It's supposed to be a 2 count, a near fall. But neither one of the wrestlers in the ring or Teddy Long acknowledged it. They just moved on like it never happened. It was terrible to watch back though, and the crowd even chanted, you effed up. But X-Pac, he then hits the X Factor and he gets the pin. He retains the European title. 5 minutes, 53 seconds, 2.5 stars for Meltzer. Without that botch, it probably easily could have been a 3.25 star match because both of these guys can work. It was a fine match. And then we got Kevin Kelly. He's backstage. He's interviewing DX. And he asks if there's a strategy for DX in the Rumble match. And they make it clear. It's every man for themselves. And then as China points out, and every woman for themselves. So that was cool stuff there. We're back in the ring now. And we've got Shane McMahon out here. And he's out to introduce Luna. I'm not really sure why. Like, at this time, it just really felt like the WWF was trying to do anything and everything they could to get Shane involved. He's doing commentary on Sunday Night Heat. He's doing interviews in the ring. I like Shane McMahon a lot. I really do. But watching it back is like he didn't work. He wasn't great at commentary. And it was just really weird to have him come out and introduce Luna here. But that is what it is. He says that Sable can't compete tonight after the attack that she suffered earlier on Heat by Luna, and he calls out Sable to relinquish the title. Instead, she says, ring the bell, and here we are. It's a strap match for the belt. Cole explains the rules and how to win. You have to touch all four corners in succession. It's a pretty bad match. Thankfully, it doesn't last too long, though. The finish comes when both wrestlers are back-to-back, and they're going around the ring slapping corners, so they've each got 3 turnbuckles slapped. But then Shane gets up on the apron to distract the ref to keep him from seeing Sable get the 4th turnbuckle, but then a unknown woman ends up jumping the guardrail and knocking Luna down, and Sable got that 4th turnbuckle anyway for the win. That unnamed woman would turn out to be Tori. They started a storyline, if you remember, Tori, not Tori Wilson, but Tori was a crazed fan at first. Meltzer gave it a dud. Yep, I gave it a dud as well. It sucked. Match went 4 minutes, 43 seconds. But it's fine because, you've had pretty much three bangers in a row to start, or 3 matches at least that the fans are super into. So let's cool them down a little bit, because now we're getting into one of the matches of the ages as far as brutality goes. It's The Rock. He's challenging Mankind for the WWF title, and it's an I Quit match. Blood won't stop it. A pinfall won't stop it. You have to say the words, I quit. We get a great video package here showing the build for the match. And then Rock is interviewed by Michael Hayes backstage, and he cuts a very classic and vintage Rock promo. And this is also the era of Rock wrestling in a shirt, because he was recovering from cosmetic pec surgery. You heard me correctly. He had cosmetic pec surgery. Didn't like the way his breasts looked, so did something about it and wrestled in a shirt for a while. Early on, we get some great trash talking from Rock every time Mankind would put the mic in his face. It was just very good stuff. And then it's also a funny spot here where The Rock takes the ring bell and he holds it up to Mankind's head and hits the bell with the bell hammer. Then he sings into the mic, "Bells will be ringing." That's funny stuff. And then, Rock tries to rock bottom Mankind through the Spanish announce table, but as they're standing on it and he tries to hit the move, the table just collapses. So I guess that was a shoot table, not a working table. And anyway, The Rock then they're fighting a ways back up the ramp, and Rock climbs a ladder up to the stands, up to the crowd, and then Mankind follows him, and they fight on the ledge there, high above the ground, until Mankind is thrown onto the electrical circuit boards. And we get some, nice sparks flying, the lights flickering, the lights on the entrance ramp went out. He still won't quit. There's no quit in him. It's a very brutal looking bump, though. Those electrical boxes had no give, and he just bounced off of them. Then the match gets painfully brutal, though. We're back in the ring now. Rock has handcuffed Mankind behind his back, and after a little back and forth, Rock grabs a chair and just unleashes on Mankind. He places the chair on Mankind's face and hits a people's elbow on it, but that's only the beginning. We get 11 brutal, unprotected chair shots to the head from The Rock to Mankind. Finally, the match does come to an end, though. We're back up the ramp here, and Rock puts the mic into what looks like a dead Mankind's face and asks him if he quit, and we hear, "I quit, I quit, I quit." Now, remember that promo from Heat that I said, remember that? That was a very important promo. We come to find out after this show, on Raw, that what we heard was actually a snippet from Mankind's promo on Heat. He didn't actually quit. He couldn't talk. He was unconscious, I guess. But so that wasn't really him quitting. It was just, that's a kind of I like that finish, honestly. I like that finish because that's a low downhill move, and that's what you want from The Rock. But nonetheless, The Rock's the new champ, and this match is really just tough to watch in 2023 because of all the chair shots to the head. It went 21 minutes, 47 seconds. Meltzer ripped the match apart in the Wrestling Observer. Was not a fan of the brutality, but did end up giving it 3 3/4 stars, the highest rated match of the night. But, of course, the discourse from this match is that there was a lot of tension and bad blood between The Rock and Mick Foley after this match. Mick Foley actually wrote in his book that he felt like The Rock didn't take care of him, took liberties with him, and there's questions about whether The Rock ever came back into the dressing room and checked on Mankind, checked on Mick to see if he was okay. And there was some hard feelings there, and we're talking for years. Rock allegedly got carried away because Mankind kept getting up, so he just kept hitting him and kept hitting him and kept hitting him harder and harder. And is not exactly what was laid out and planned for that match. But that's enough of the undercard. Now it's time for the main event. It's the Royal Rumble match. You got a WWF title match at WrestleMania is on the line, as well as the $100,000 bounty for eliminating Stone Cold Steve Austin. Before the match, we get a video package recapping the history of the McMahon-Austin rivalry and how Austin qualified for the Rumble match to begin with by, beating the Undertaker in a Buried Alive match. And then Howard Finkel is in the ring, and he gives the most in-depth and elaborate explanation of the Royal Rumble match rules that I have ever heard in my life. It was so painful because you just want the match to start, and he was just being so particular to let everyone know that just because you're on the outside of the ring does not mean you're eliminated. You have to go over the top rope. And it was just, fast forward through that if you watch this match. But then the glass shatters and Austin is out first. Get a great pop from the crowd, and we're off. Vince McMahon's out next. And even though we've heard his music all night as the theme to the show, the No Chance in Hell, that's the theme show for this show. Matter of fact, No Chance in Hell is the tagline to this pay-per-view. He comes out here to no music. It's very weird in retrospect. Like, that would never happen today. Now, I will say this, though. Vince McMahon is jacked here. And it's funny, there's actually a spot later where they're up in the crowd, and there's a fan that has a sign that says Vince is on juice. And so that's funny. But anyway, the match starts, and Austin starts out strong. He's stomping away at Vince McMahon, and the crowd is loving it. He could have thrown him out, but decides not to. Then entrant number 3 is out, and it's Golga. Now, I timed the intervals on all these, so I'm going to tell you what these intervals were by my count. And this one was right at about 90 seconds on that interval. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. But, Titan time is a real thing. Titan time was a phrase they came up with for the intervals on the Royal Rumble match. In the original Royal Rumble match, it was quote-unquote 90 seconds. The crowd's not going to sit there with the stopwatch, so we'll send them out when we feel it's right. And so, I timed the intervals on this. I'll let you know between each entrant. Now, something that sucks about this is that, Golga's out, but they dubbed over the Oddities music on Peacock. So if you go back and watch this, you don't get that classic Insane Clown Posse theme that I remember the Oddities using, that WWF The Music Volume 3, that CD had on it. So that kind of sucks, but it's okay. Golga's out quickly, and then Vince is snuck under the bottom rope, and Austin gives chase, and they go chasing up through the crowd, and the ring is empty. Draws is entrant number 4. He's out after about 1:23 seconds, and the camera shows Austin chasing Vince in the arena, and he's lured into the women's restroom, and that's where the corporation's waiting. And they ambush him, and the cameraman takes a spill, so we don't actually get looks at him for quite a while here, but we know Austin is in trouble. Draws is in the ring solo now, so we get a very short interval as Edge is out, and this interval is only about 50 seconds. And then after about 1:21 seconds, Gillberg's out. What a hilarious parody Gillberg was. I hate 95% of Vince Russo's ideas in retrospect, but Gillberg is hilarious. That one definitely worked. His entrance is awesome in this Rumble here, and it was also awesome. He was eliminated by Edge as soon as he got in the ring. So Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. We get back to the women's restroom now, and Stone Cold is face down, and he's not moving, and the corporation's walking out, kind of puffing their chest like they've just mission accomplished, right? Then we get another entrant. Steve Blackman's out next, closer to 90 seconds on that interval. And then we're back to Austin, and the medical team is putting him on a stretcher. Something I do wish we had in this would be split screens. Picture in picture would have really helped this right here because we're going back and forth so much, but that's okay. There's also a hilarious spot back in the ring here because as Droz is working on eliminating Steve Blackman, he yells over at Edge, "Get over here," and help him. And Edge just kind of calmly walks up and casually pokes Droz in the eyes. So I laugh at that every time I've watched it. Then we get over 2 minutes on the next interval, and it's Dan Severn out next, the Beast. And fun fact here is Severn allegedly considered shooting on the Royal Rumble match, and it's been widely debated what would happen if he did. Who could take him in a shoot fight? Not many. Dan Severn was 101, 19, and 7 in his MMA career. I mean, we're talking an accomplished amateur wrestler, UFC Hall of Fame, several gold medals, just jiu-jitsu and judo black belt. So yeah, good thing he didn't, and he decided to play ball. Then we get Austin. He's leaving. They're taking him out on a stretcher. It is funny seeing Teddy Long and all the other refs escorting the stretcher out to the ambulance. Like, I think the EMTs have it, guys. You don't have to follow him out to the ambulance. Minute 19 later now, and Tiger Ali Singh is out. He's our next entrant. Do you remember Tiger Ali Singh? Bet you don't. And then about a minute and 13 seconds later, we get Blue Meanie. Huge pop from the ECW Stand and Me. Love it. And then entrant number 11. It's time for them. But they don't come out at first. But then we go backstage and we see that Mabel has attacked Headbanger Mosh, and he walks out the curtain. So it appears that Mosh was supposed to be in the Rumble, but Mabel's taking his spot. Mabel comes in and he quickly eliminates Dan Severn, Tiger Ali Singh, and Blue Meanie. But then entrant number 12's out after a minute and 21 seconds, and he eliminates Edge as soon as he's in the ring. But then the lights go out. Taker's music hits. And when the lights come back on, the Acolytes and Midian had eliminated Mabel, and they lead him up the ramp to the Undertaker. So it appears that promo from earlier on Heat, where Undertaker was talking about picking their next victim, appears that it was Mabel. And we find out it was. I mean, on Raw the next night, they changed his name to Viscera and all that good stuff. He's initiated. But here, they beat him all the way up their entrance ramp, out to the back. And meanwhile, this interval between the last entrant and this next entrant, over 2.5 minutes. Because Taker's out there at the entrance ramp, and they have to wait for this spot's over. And it's Gangrel out next. He and Road Dogg are the only ones in the ring, but Vince is still in the match, and so is Stone Cold Steve Austin, technically. So it's worth noting. Gangrel's eliminated quickly by Road Dogg, and then Kurgan is out after just a minute interval. And Kurgan, it's funny seeing him come out. He's got a tie-dye shirt on. He's got Zubaz pants tucked into his leather boots. He's wearing a leather football helmet. Just got to love it. Those oddities, man. I can't pretend like they weren't over with me as a, 11-year-old kid, 10, 11 years old at this time. And then we get our closest to 90-second interval yet as Al Snow is out at number 15. And Road Dogg watches Al Snow trying to eliminate Kurgan with his hands on his hip and then just walks over and pushes Al out. That was a funny spot. And we're getting better at our intervals here. Goldust is out next, and it's right at 90 seconds. So good job, Bruce Pritchard, on that. The Godfather is out at number 17. He's got a couple hoes with him, but he stops the hoes from coming down to the ring, and he sends them off with his hat and cane. So now we've got 4 men in the ring, and still Mr. McMahon and Stone Cold still technically in the match. After about a 45-second interval, it's Kane out at 18, and he quickly eliminates Road Dogg, Kurgan, Godfather, and Goldust to clear the ring. But then some orderlies run out, and Mr. McMahon has threatened to have Kane institutionalized again. So after he knocks a couple of the white coats down, he grabs a straitjacket, climbs over the top rope, and he's out of here. Walks off. But he's literally out of here. He eliminated himself. Okay. After about a minute and 9 seconds after Kane entered, Ken Shamrock's out next. So now that it's someone from the corporation, Vince decides, you know what, he's going to re-enter the match. So 2 members of the corporation are in the match, and Vince decides, you know what? Nope, I'm out again. He climbs through the ropes and joins commentary for about 30 minutes. Vince says Austin went away in an ambulance and he's not coming back. Then less than a minute after Shamrock comes out, Billy Gunn's out next, and he's really selling this ankle injury. I mean, he's putting Shamrock's ankle lock over like $1 million here. He's only got one boot on, no sock, and he's limping around like crazy. And then right at 90 seconds on the next interval, it's Test. So 2-on-1 for Billy Gunn here, not looking great. Camera goes to the parking lot now, and we've got the Ministry beating the hell out of Mabel and stuffing him into the back of a hearse. But then we hear sirens and an ambulance pulls up. Vince looks like he's just seen a ghost, and it's Stone Cold driving the ambulance. He's walking back to the ring. After 1 minute and 19 seconds on the interval, Boss Man's music hits as Austin's already walking down the ramp, and Shamrock is eliminated by Austin as soon as he gets in the ring. Big Boss Man's out as well, but then entrant number 23 is Triple H after about 1 minute and 5 seconds. 1 minute 13 second interval now, and Val Venus is in. Austin eliminates Billy Gunn, and then X-Pac joins the match. Good interval there, solid. But then another pretty good interval, and it's Mark Henry at number 26. So we got 7 guys in the ring, plus Vince McMahon still in the match. He's at ringside on commentary. And then about 1 minute and 20 seconds later, Jeff Jarrett and Deborah are out. And huge pop there, but it's clearly for Deborah. She looks great. I'll give it to her. But she doesn't stay out. She goes back to the back, and then the pop is over for Double J. And X-Pac, to prove that it's every man for himself, X-Pac actually gives Triple H a spinning heel kick. And so that DX promo from earlier, there's a little callback there. I like that. Then he hits a Bronco Buster on Boss Man. So he had some of the more memorable spots in this match, honestly, hitting his own teammate with the spinning heel kick, doing the Bronco Buster, his signature move. And then at number 28 is D'Lo Brown. Test is then eliminated by Austin, and X-Pac goes flying at the hands of the Boss Man. But then number 29's out, and it's the late, great Owen Hart. And right as the buzzer sounds for him, Jeff Jarrett's eliminated by Triple H. Austin rolls out of the ring now, and he throws a pitcher of water in Vince's face and re-enters the match. We get almost a legit 90-second interval here, and it's Chyna out at number 30. So right now we have Val Venus, Mark Henry, Triple H, Big Boss Man, Owen Hart, D'Lo Brown, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and technically Mr. McMahon still in the match. But Chyna doesn't last long. After she eliminates Mark Henry, Stone Cold clotheslines her over the top rope. She's out. She lasted 35 seconds. Val Venus is then tossed out by Triple H, and after a stunner from Austin, Triple H is gone. So the final 4 in this match are Stone Cold Steve Austin, D'Lo Brown, Big Boss Man, and Owen Hart. Oh, and I guess Mr. McMahon, who's still on commentary and still in the match. But, honestly, I don't like this being the Final 4. The Final 4 should always be in a Royal Rumble match. They should be people that you could see in the main event of WrestleMania. Was D'Lo Brown ever going to main event a WrestleMania? And that's not a knock on D'Lo. D'Lo's a great worker, but he just wasn't over like that. I think Triple H should have had that spot, especially since DX had been feuding with the corporation. They're super over. I think that's what we needed. And The Rock is the champ that the winner would face at Mania. So, that corporation DX feud, that just makes sense. It makes the watchers believe that everyone in the match has a legit chance at winning. But that's okay. We'll forgive it. So then Owen is eliminated by Austin, and after D'Lo hits a lowdown, a incredible looking frog splash on Austin, Boss Man tosses D'Lo out. As that happens, Austin gets up and hits a stunner on Boss Man, then eliminates him. So it's just Austin and McMahon left. Stone Cold gets out of the ring, goes over to the announce table, and he lunges at Mr. McMahon over the announce table, and they start fighting at ringside and then in the crowd. Then Austin blasts Vince with a chair shot to the head and rolls him into the ring. But then McMahon turns the tables. He hits a low blow on Austin. But then Stone Cold fights back. He hits a stunner. But then instead of eliminating Vince, instead of eliminating Mr. McMahon, Austin plays with his food a little bit, and it comes back to bite him. The Rock comes out, distracts Austin, and the unthinkable happens. Mr. McMahon gets up and throws Austin over the top rope to win the Royal Rumble. Talk about the ultimate jaw-dropping moment. Vince McMahon never had a shot in this match. That's that's just how he was portrayed. He was not a legit threat. He wanted someone else to eliminate Austin. But he won. Austin and Rock fight up the ramp here and onto the back, and Vince is helped to his feet by the refs and Shane McMahon. The crowd looks stunned. Everybody's just kind of standing around like, did we really just see that? Boos rain down as the Fink declares Mr. McMahon the winner. And Vince celebrates with a beer toast in the ring with Shane, Gerald Briscoe, and Pat Patterson to mock Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, the match itself got 1.5 stars from Dave Meltzer, but how do you give a match like this a star rating? Like, how do you give stars in a Rumble match? Was the match itself good? No, not really. But it advanced storylines. It was entertaining as hell. And it's a Royal Rumble match. Like, you can't not enjoy a Royal Rumble match, I feel. Fun note here, I kind of mentioned earlier, but Bruce Pritchard, he was the one that was in charge of sending the guys out. He was in charge of the intervals. But he said that this one was different because instead of just, okay, go, they had to wait for certain spots to happen because there's so much going on in the match. So he was watching the match, and once he saw a spot happen, he would yell 10, 9, and they'd put the clock up for the next guy to enter. So that's kind of fun. So the fallout from this show was the next night on Raw, Mr. McMahon says that he's given up his title shot, and The Rock will get the $100,000 for distracting Austin, allowing him to eliminate him, and that Mr. McMahon himself would handpick someone to face Rock at WrestleMania. Commissioner Shawn Michaels had other plans, though, said no, sir, and brought up the rule that if the winner forgoes his title shot, then it goes to the runner-up. So that sets us up for WrestleMania 15's main event, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. So we get the main event at Mania that we wanted anyway. We just took a fun detour to get there, honestly. The storyline's white hot. Some stats for the Royal Rumble match itself. You've got Stone Cold Steve Austin with the most eliminations. He eliminated 8 people in the match. Austin and McMahon are both tied for the longest times in the Royal Rumble match, 56 minutes and 38 seconds. Although both of them spent majority of the match outside the ring, but from entrance to bell, that's technically what their time was. Then you had Gilbert. He had the shortest time in the match with just 7 seconds. Poor Dwayne Gill. Some fun stuff from the show, though. This is personal opinion, of course. I've been doing this every episode. My RVD 5-star moment of the show, I got to give it to Mick Foley. Mick Foley's dedication to the craft, to the sport of professional wrestling. What a performance against The Rock. Gutty. He took those chair shots like a champ, and regardless of whether, Rock got carried away and took liberties with Mankind or not, Mick Foley kept standing up. He kept fighting, and you got to give his heart the 5-star moment of this pay-per-view. My Shockmaster shockingly bad moment of the pay-per-view, though, was the whole Sable and Luna thing. I mean, that match sucked. It was just awful. Sable looked like $1 million, but could not wrestle her way out of a wet paper bag. Brock Lesnar, if you ever listen to this, I'm sorry I didn't mean it anything personal, but it's the facts, man. She couldn't wrestle. She was very limited, and the match was just awful. And if you want to throw in the crap from Heat that we saw between these two, that's included. So with that, the 1999 WWF Royal Rumble is down for the 1, 2, 3. Be on the lookout on Twitter in the next coming days. I'm going to put another poll out there for the next episode. The 4 choices that I've settled on are WCW Spring Stampede 1994, ECW Barely Legal, that's their first ever pay-per-view from 1997, WWE WrestleMania 17, I guess it would be WWF WrestleMania 17, and then TNA Lockdown 2009. So look those shows up, familiarize yourself with the cards, see if there's something you would rather me talk about, and vote for it. Appreciate everyone tuning in again. Be sure to tell a friend. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, all that good stuff. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon. You name a platform, I'm on there. So if you know someone that listens to podcasts, but they're like, I only listen to Stitcher. Well, guess what? I'm on Stitcher. So there's no excuse. Tell all your Mark and Jabroni friends to listen. And that's it. So long from the Volunteer State.